In this edition of the News Review, Palestinians have protested against Israeli demolition of buildings in a neighborhood in the occupied West Bank. The regime has ordered the residents of Sur Baher to tear down their homes with their own hands, or they will have to pay the cost of the demolition.
Israeli forces fired tear gas to disperse Palestinians protesting against the regime's demolition of buildings on the outskirts of the occupied West Bank. The protesters had gathered near the Sur Baher neighborhood, which lies in the southeast of Jerusalem, Al-Quds. The Israeli regime had ordered Palestinians residing there to destroy their homes themselves, or they have to pay the cost of demolition if the buildings were not torn down by July 18th. Israel said it wants to tear down the buildings due to their proximity to a barrier wall separating West Bank from East Jerusalem, Al-Quds. Palestinians, however, call it a land grab designed to annex parts of the West Bank.
This is an Israeli continuous aggression against the Jerusalemites and against all, in violating all international laws. There is an Israeli policy going in defeating the presence of the Jerusalemites in Jerusalem.
The Israeli order has also been met with international outcry. United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, Nikolai Miladinov, called on Israel to stop the demolition.
Such actions are contrary to international law and could undermine the chances for the establishment of a viable, contiguous Palestinian state.
The European Union also issued a similar statement saying,
"The continuation of this policy undermines the viability of the two-state solution and the prospect for a lasting peace."
Inside Sur Baher, residents are living in a state of fear and hope to keep their place of living. Ismail Obeidia is a father of 6 whose home is set to be demolished by Israeli forces. He says he will not leave the house.
I hope the house will not be demolished. I won't leave the house. They can demolish it while I and my children are in it. I won't leave this house. This house means a lot to me. It's my home. I won't leave the house at all.
While the international community makes some statements condemning the acts, the lack of action increasingly emboldens the regime. After all, just going through what Tel Aviv has asked Palestinians speaks volumes of the sheer nature of the horrible crime. Destroy your homes with your own hands, or we will do that and charge you for the destruction.
For more on that, we're joined by our correspondent Mona Kandil, who's joining us live from Ramallah, and Jafar Ramini, Palestinian author and political analyst out of London. Mr. Ramini, could you please elaborate on the situation? This is outrageous to ask someone to leave their home, something that, according to the universal laws of human rights, is every person's right to have a home. You ask them to leave, not only to leave, but to demolish it themselves, and if not, pay for the demolition. Where in international does that stand?
This is not only outrageous, this is totally barbarous and criminal. Let's just expand on the so-called separation wall. This was built illegally by Israel on Palestinian land, and it's part and parcel of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, especially Jerusalem, and the forcible removal of the Jerusalem residents out of Jerusalem. It's in violation of the national law. We have seen many video and many report of Israeli settlers reinforced by the Israeli occupation force to evict people from their ancestral homes. And it goes on. Israel was built on the ethnic cleansing, forcible removal of Palestinians, and occupation. And the occupation has lasted for 71 years, the longest in history. And the world is going on and doing nothing.
So, Mona, could you please clarify the situation? When were these buildings built? And was there any prospect of them falling into this kind of course, very unfair Israeli regulations that they should be demolished? Do we know anything about that? And based on what law has the court decided that this petition should be revoked?
Well, in 2011, the Israeli military designated a buffer zone, let's say a separation wall of 100 to 300 meters on each side of the separation wall in Surbahed. They, of course, the Israeli regime, they cite security concerns. However, they were defining the borders of the city. Construction is not allowed in the area. According to the Israeli laws, half of these buildings have been built after the 2011 order, and the Israelis recently decided that all these buildings should be destroyed, and the notice just ended on 18th of July, as you mentioned. The Israeli regime gave the residents a chance to either demolish these buildings by themselves, or the Israeli bulldozers will, and the Israeli military, of course, will be destroying these residential buildings. So Palestinians, of course, on both sides would be facing a difficult situation. They would be seeing their own homes, their own dreams being demolished. They would be coming, of course, homeless, and otherwise they would be fined if not demolishing these structures by themselves.
Thank you very much for your elaborations, Mr. Jafar Ramini, Palestinian author and political analyst, and also our correspondent, as always, working very hard on the ground, Mona Kandil from Ramallah, who will be also keeping watch and giving us more updates on this very tragic situation over there. And thanks to all of our viewers for following this edition of the News Review.